Hey, Dreamers, it's your host, Andrea Vall, and I am joined today by Dennis Yu, a longtime friend of mine who has gone from corporate America to starting a successful agency called Blitz Metrics, and now he's on a mission to create 1 million jobs. Find out how he's doing that and find out some of the keys to his success. Hello, dreamers. Welcome to the Late Starters Club, giving you the inspiration, mindset, and tools you need to start something midlife and beyond. Remember, it's never too late to follow your dreams. And now, a word from our sponsor, me. Would you like to get more inbound leads and sales from Facebook, Instagram, and Google? For most people, the answer is yes. But learning these ad platforms is time consuming and complicated, and oftentimes business owners set up their campaigns wrong and waste a ton of money. Let us do the work for you. I'm Andrea Vall. I've been running ad campaigns for clients for 11 years, and I have generated over $4 million in trackable sales from Facebook, Instagram, and Google for my clients in the last 2 years. Some of the things I've done for my clients include things like 3,000 targeted new email subscribers to a list, sold 54 tickets to a brand new 2-day event directly from Facebook, 8x return on ads to a brand new digital course, 3,845 webinar attendees with over 300 member sales. So if you're looking for results like these, and don't want to run your ad campaigns yourself, go to my website, AndreaVall.com, and select the Facebook ad services to learn more. I'd love to have a conversation with you about how I can help you get more inbound leads and sales. Dreamers, it's Val, your host, and I am here with the amazing, super connected. We were just talking about how amazingly connected he is in the whole world. Dennis Yu, founder of Blitz Metrics, among amazing other things that he's done. We'll get into a lot of the new things that he's doing, but welcome, Dennis. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
I'm just happy to be with Andrea Vall.
You're awesome. So,
What an honor.
so, yeah. So tell us a little bit before we started rolling. You were talking about the arc of what you've done, and I love your latest focus that you have. But I'd love to hear in your words the arc of what you've been doing and kind of your mission now, later in life, as to what your goal is, and well on your way to achieving. So give us a little of your
Yeah.
backstory.
20 some years ago, I was really lucky to be at Yahoo at the beginning. And I was a search engine engineer. I built the analytics and built some huge databases. I'm Asian, so I'm good at math and programming. And I left Yahoo and I made a little bit of money enough that I don't have to work. And a lot of my friends who work for me that I trained up at Yahoo, they went to go work at Google, and then Google IPO'd and they made even more money than me. And I just love seeing that happen. And when
Yeah.
I left Yahoo, I had some great connections because I was at Yahoo. I would speak at these conferences because all these people wanted to know about SEO. Today, they still want to know about SEO, trying to
Right.
trick Google, whatever.
Yeah.
And so we teach all these people how to do this. And I had an agency that did this for some of the biggest companies out there. And then the SEO thing turned into social media, which in my opinion is the same thing. It's just another algorithm. It's just video and pictures instead of words and instead of just websites. And so we've trained up so many different agencies to do that. And I've been really lucky that some of these major agency owners and software companies have given me a little piece of their company. And some of them have gone public. Some of them have been acquired by some really big companies. And I'm just waiting for us to be able to sell the shares so I can cash in on that.
Mm.
And now I'm in this third phase. So that's what we're doing, these late bloomers, where I've decided, with the help of Mark Schaefer and David Meerman Scott and other friends who are way smarter than me, I want to create 1 million jobs. I was thinking small. I thought hiring hundreds of VAs was a big deal.
Yeah.
But now, and my buddy Rihan, who's one of the most famous people in Pakistan, he said, Dennis, you need to set your sights much bigger because you're involved with so many agencies and you're so connected in the digital marketing space. Like you, Andrea, with Social Media Marketing World and Michael Stelzner and that kind of thing. Why don't we leverage the things that we have, the connections we have, the voice we have in the world of digital marketing to create openings for people in the Philippines, in Pakistan, in Kosovo, and whatnot. My buddy John Jonas started onlinejobs.ph. That's the world's largest VA site. He's got 2 million VAs on his site.
Wow.
And we were talking about this Million Jobs mission. And he said, together, because we've been working on things, that I can take credit towards the million jobs for 250,000 jobs, which is great. So I'm a quarter of the way
Yeah.
there in creating a
Yeah.
million jobs. And I met with the prime minister of IT in Pakistan and other government leaders. I was there last month. I've been there several times. And they want to do the same thing that we've done in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And they set up a bunch of incubators. They brought money and cell phones and laptops and internet and all these things you can imagine, like when a government really wants to do this. And our mission over there is to create jobs. You know, Andrea, how much the average Pakistani makes in 1 month?
Oh, wow. I know
Yes.
when I traveled to India, I remember it being so low for India, but that was a while ago, so I don't know if it's even increased then, but how much is it?
It's $80 a month.
Oh my
So
gosh. I was gonna
a
guess
month.
higher than that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
there's people who make more or less. I know people who are
Sure.
wildly successful, but they're in that top 0.1%. But what we've said is, hey, if you can go through our certification and learn how to do digital marketing, we guarantee you a job at $3 an hour, which is $500 a month. So
Yeah.
imagine, Andrea, not for you, but imagine
Yeah.
for these other people, a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids, $500 a month is
Yeah.
life-changing money. That's
Yeah.
solid middle class, upper middle class. You can have a
Yeah.
house, you can have a car, you can probably even have a servant or two for
Yeah.
$500 a month. Like you can live, you're not going to live like rich, but you're going to have a
Right.
decent life for $500 a month. And that's just
Right.
a starting point. Then you move up to $750, $1,000 a month through our training system. And you and I, we speak at these conferences. So I'm speaking at Josh Nelson's conference in Miami. He's seven-figure agency, so he's teaching all these digital agencies. And I said, who here would like to hire a VA to edit your videos, process your podcast, take care of your clients, and repurpose the stuff to GMB and write blog posts and do, dollar a day boosting that we teach? Who here would like to hire a VA for $500 a month to do that for you full time?
Yeah.
Every hand in the room goes up. So I'm just
Right.
connecting both sides. Now, constantly going back and forth to these developing countries. They don't like to be called third world. Developing countries. Then I come
Yeah.
back to the United States and we have business owners that just can't hire enough staff. McDonald's pays $22 an hour min wage
Right.
in California. And those
Right.
people are not even interested in doing work. So
Right.
imagine these agency owners and these other businesses, we're building this conduit to be able to connect these folks together because what unifies them together, and you know this, Andrea, because you have Facebook ads made simple and you have a lot of training on this. It's the training and the process that brings both sides together. Because these businesses, when they hire someone, they're hiring someone who is certified and can fit into an existing process. They don't have to
Yeah.
write up a job description or come up with a new thing or have to
Yeah.
supervise people. Like it's an existing process. And these people know exactly when they get certified, they're going to fit exactly in with what these businesses are doing. And we're just allowing that to happen. That couldn't have happened unless I ran an agency and coached other agencies. And then
Yeah.
20 years ago, had corporate experience. So now I'm the
Right.
late bloomer because I want to be the job creator, but it couldn't have happened unless I had this previous experience.
Yeah, and that's what I love is that you have got this story arc of experience that is this thread that ties everything together in order to have you achieve this amazing, amazing goal that I know for sure, hands down, you're going to get probably sooner rather than later. And then it'll be like, let's go for a billion. So that is awesome. I love that. And I think it's a good question. What do you think has been an advantage for you in starting this later in life? Obviously, your experience is one thing, but are there other advantages that you feel like you have with the years of wisdom you have in being able to do this mission right now?
Everything has been relationships. Having someone like you that I can call on when I have a question, or asking Stelzner a coaching question on like, how do you hire a COO and scale up a process? Or other friends that run conferences, I'm asking them, how did you market it? And I think you probably tell me if you agree, as you get further along in your career, it's more about relationships than your own technical expertise.
Yeah.
And I don't think for this mission that I have on creating jobs, I'm largely just like a bumblebee that's flying back and forth between East and West, kindling these relationships. I think you know more about Facebook ads than I do now, right? but, but I
It's
can
so
make a
funny.
phone call. If I have a question
Yeah.
about Google ads, I
Yeah.
can make a phone call to Cosm. If I have a question about how do you structure agency SOP, I can call Tony Ricketts. if I have a question about how to write a book and what I should call it, I can contact Mark Schaefer or David Meerman
Yeah.
Scott. Anyway, I'm not trying to name drop. The point is
No.
that you probably heard this whole thing about it's not how, but who. Anytime you have a
Yeah.
problem solve, the answer is who. Not even fair. So this crazy thing I'm trying to pull off with the million jobs, think about what is required to do this. You have to have the technical expertise to build a marketplace with courses and training and certification, kind of like a Fiverr and Uber. You have to have the network to bring in the demand, which is all the business people that want to hire. So an agency has enough trouble just trying to get more clients. Now we have to staff up enough demand to power thousands of agencies. That's hard to do. And we have to do the supply of all the workers and all the stuff necessary to work with the governments in these other countries and entrepreneurship groups to bring that together. Then we have to have the financial payroll system to enable the tracking of the tasks and allowing people to level up. If we were to build an Upwork or Fiverr or whatnot. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but there's a lot of things that have to happen to build a full two-sided marketplace, just
Right.
even from the software engineering side alone. And there's no way I would know how to do that. Even if
Yeah.
I was a super mega genius expert,
Which you
even
are.
if there were like but even, oh, you're too kind. But even if there were 10 dentists, let's say Elon Musk, he releases his cloning technology, right? And there were 10 dentists that were working on this, I still couldn't pull it off.
Yeah.
So everything for me to pull off my big dreams, I have to somehow convince other people who are way smarter than me to want to. My buddy Daryl Isaacs told me this morning, he's in London right now, going to the UK game. He said, make your dream so big that everyone else's dream can fit inside of it.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So my big dream with creating these jobs is so big that other people, their dream maybe is just to make $500 a month and be able to
Right.
take care of their family and buy a new car, which is great. Other people, they just started their digital agency and they're trying to go from 30,000 MRR to 50,000 MRR. That's great, right? We
Mhm.
can help them. And I just
Right.
love, like yesterday I was with Justin Breen. I feel like the universe it's not even fair. Like I'm getting all these benefits. It's like cheating. But Justin Breen was telling me that he is a world-class PR agency. He was on my podcast yesterday, and he said that he's never selling. He's not out there trying to convince anybody of anything, because who wants to be there trying to convince people and selling? He says he's a
Yeah.
buyer. He's constantly buying services. And then because to scale his agency to help other people grow. And the more money he makes, the more services he can buy, the more people he can hire, the more impact he can make. It's the same thing. Like you and I, like you're doing this podcast. I don't think it's because you're trying to make money. Maybe you are. Maybe there's a back end program, but you're doing it because you have the expertise and the experience to actually tell other people who are late bloomers in their 40s and 50s and beyond that their past experience has led them to this point and it wasn't accidental, that now is the right time. What I was in Kentucky 2 weeks ago. Colonel Sanders, started KFC when he was 70, something like, or
Yeah, yeah,
67.
yeah, definitely one of the most famous late starters ever, so yeah, it can happen. And so I love that idea of really the fact that the connections have brought you to where you are and help fuel your dream. You are one of the best connectors that I've ever met. What is your secret to making those connections? How do you approach people? How do you keep those connections rolling? Because you do such a great job of that. How do you do that?
You're too kind. If this Chinese search engine engineer who didn't speak English until he was 7 can network, anybody can do a better job than me at this. Let me tell you, it's not about memorizing people's names or having a way to send out gifts or socks with people's faces on them, which is something I do. It's not like networking tips and charisma and how well you smile, which helps. It's this. And I went through these particular 3 stages. I've only shared this one time before, so I'm curious to see what you think. So imagine you were me 40 years ago, you didn't speak English, and you wanted to do well and get good grades like other Asians. So you just studied and studied. So I spent 8 hours a day in the library, weekends too, just studying for years. I didn't have any social skills. I didn't know how to introduce myself. I didn't go to cocktail parties. I was a loser, okay? I didn't have any friends, but I studied. And I gained so much knowledge that then when other people had an issue or a question, I was like a walking encyclopedia. People literally called me a walking encyclopedia, which at that time I thought was cool. Now I think it's nerdy because I could answer all these questions. So people would want to have me come along because I could answer questions. So I did tutoring. I did all this math tutoring. People would pay me $500 in high school to sit with them the night before to help them pass the final exam, right? I even did stuff like I helped these sorority girls like write their papers that were due, or accounting classes. I could help balance things. I could help people with their final. I was like known at SMU where I went to undergrad. I was known as like the guy who, if it was like super desperate and the exam is tomorrow or the paper's due tomorrow, like you call Dennis. Like Dennis is the guy. It doesn't matter how freaked out you are. He will help you pass the math test. He will help you pass intermediate accounting. He will help you get through first semester calculus. And I was just good at that because I had enough knowledge that I could help people with their SAT. I did a lot of test prep. So these rich families would have me come in and teach their teenagers how to get better scores in the SAT. And of course, they got better scores in math in the SAT because I know what I'm doing, right? So gaining expertise then caused other people to want to reach out to me because I built a reputation. It wasn't because I gave out 10 business cards at every meeting. It wasn't because I sent out a bunch of cold emails and said, hey, I'd like to get on the phone with you for 15 minutes and see if I can introduce myself and tell you about my business and see if I can. I never did any kind of cold outreach. It was all because I developed some expertise. Other people knew me for that. And then the third phase is then I could start making connections. So if I have a friend who maybe they want to publish a book on Instagram ads, then I could say, you know what? You should talk to my friend Andrea Vall because she's got several books on Facebook ads. And I bet you, let me just introduce you to this other person. So
Yeah.
my power now in networking is because I built knowledge first, then I executed in practice where people reached out to me. Third phase is now I can make connections. So whenever
Yeah.
someone has a question about, hey, actually, I won't say this because if I say this, more people will ask me for this, but like people would ask me for an introduction to Mark Zuckerberg, or they'd ask me for playoff tickets to the Golden State Warriors because they were our client for 5.5 years.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Don't ask me for tickets to oh, Dennis, hey, you know, years. Can you get me tickets to that game on Friday? You're not a real friend, and I know what you're trying to get. I see right through what you're going. Hey, Dennis, I have this new startup idea. I would love for you to be an investor. No, I don't invest. I'm invest. But the
Yeah.
key to networking I found was that first I have the knowledge so that I can actually provide value. Two, I have the experience where I've actually done something. And three, I can make the introduction. So the way I look at it is most people look at it as one of the three things. So if they just want to gather knowledge, then they just end up get multiple degrees and be a university professor. That's a dead end, right? Nothing wrong with that. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, don't be a university professor. You have to eventually start doing stuff. Two is they say, hey, I just want to hustle. I'll figure it out. Fire, ready, aim. And so they just like, I'll hustle and figure it out. And that's why entrepreneurs fail so bad because they don't have
Mm,
the knowledge. They go straight to executing. And the third
mm,
piece, like a real estate agent or a salesperson, where they're like, you know what, I'm just going to meet as many people as I can. I don't need to develop any expertise because I can just know these other people who are expert. And then those people burn out because all they do is they just try to introduce and actually have the knowledge and they don't have the actual experience having done something. I believe the most intelligent path, which is, I think, your audience, is people who have gotten some experience doing something and now they're perfectly poised to be able to leverage these connections or start building connections
yeah.
in this new industry or for this new venture because they have that experience.
I think for sure, like that is one of the advantages of starting something later in life because as we've grown in different communities, we know all these super smart people now. And it's a great way to get introduced, get connected into something else you want to do, someone who's maybe done that and been successful at that. So that's really great. I'd be interested to know like the network of Dennis Yu, like expanding around the world. I think it would be like a big light up globe right there. That's really cool. One of the things I like about you, Dennis, is that you share a lot of people on social media sharing their success, which is great. But you're also really transparent about sharing when things are hard or when things haven't gone well for you. And I think that really draws people into you and helps people see that it's not always this perfect, smooth road. Tell us about a time where maybe you've had a problem or been overwhelmed. How do you get through that? And how do you work your way through that? And what lessons have come out of that?
Oh man, where do we start? First off, on social media, especially Instagram, I think there's this thing where you have to present this perfect self. So all these people are pretending. And I feel like you don't learn anything from your successes. And I've just made so many mistakes. I made a tweet on Twitter saying something like, if failure is the precursor to success, then I'm about to be the most successful guy on the planet. And so most of the posts that I make on social media, most people don't realize this, but 2/3 of the posts that I make are honoring other people and I'm celebrating their success. And so when I celebrate their success about how they just sold their agency, then what they do is they usually reply to that and they'll say, "Thank you, Dennis, for coaching me, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to sell the agency without your coaching all the way." And of course, I want to focus on the success that the other people have. And then when I want to post about myself, I want to post about failure. So I made a post on Facebook this morning talking about how I've absolutely failed in relationships because as this entrepreneur, I've worked so hard that I forgot about taking care of my health. I was so busy with other things, like friends didn't want to hang out with me because, like Dennis said, he just works all the time. He pulls out his laptop at the restaurant. He's always working. Or I want to get off the phone with him because I know he's busy and he's probably just like checking his watch all the time. He's going to get off the phone with Andrea. I don't want to spend on. I want to get Andrea off the phone because I'm busy. And what an asshole I was, because I was, for good reasons, because I'm behind. I have these deadlines and I'm busy and I have emails and I have meetings and I'm really important and I have this big thing coming up. But I realized what an asshole I was. And when I was with Tommy Mello a couple of days ago, I stayed at his house in Phoenix and we hung out till 1:30 playing the Golden Tee, which is a cool video game. And we were doing silly things. Like, this guy's a grown man and he sold his company for zillions of dollars. And I was there when the money came through, which is crazy. I was telling you about that before. But
Yeah.
I felt like we had all the time in the world. And my buddy Daryl, he texts me like 5 times a day. He's got a huge personal injury attorney firm. He does billions of dollars. But he and I, like, we hang out. We're literally just like hanging out, driving his boat around or whatnot. And I learned this lesson. So I'm giving the lesson from my mistake as I was an asshole. I was too busy. I was trying to outwork everybody. And then I realized, wait a minute, those times with other people are actually valuable. They build relationships. They set the right culture for the team. Just lots of things like that. And so I'm constantly sharing. I'm like the moon. You're the sun, Andrea. I'm reflecting your light. I'm always reflecting the light of what I learned from these other people. And I'm a poor reflector. But you'll see, like on social or LinkedIn, I make posts every day about mistakes that I've made and what I've learned from other people who are doing it the right way. Alex Berman just sold his SaaS company for a lot of money. And I'm learning from him about how do you grow a SaaS company. He made an introduction to the company that did the engineering, and I need a couple more engineers. And now these guys are building software for me. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. If I didn't share my mistake that, hey, I was building some software and I threw away $100,000 building this prototype that didn't work and it was my fault and I could blame them. And so Alex saw that and said, actually, happy to give you my engineering team. But if I didn't mention that I was struggling with this mistake, he would have never reached out and said, actually, let me introduce you to these guys.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a fantastic networking technique to talk about the mistakes you have.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it also helps people help you. So that's happened to me too, where I totally had a terrible speech one time. It was just awful. It was all wrong and it fell completely flat. And I just shared how bad it went. And people were so gracious when people are coming in and saying, it's okay, you got this. And so by sharing a mistake, everyone, you know, is able to help you. And I think people want to help each other, right? People want to contribute and want to help. And being able to receive that help is also another gift that you have to learn how to do. So awesome. What else do I want to? It's so fun. Oh, so what is an assumption that, no, actually, you know what? I'm going to go and ask this question. If you could go back and tell your younger self one thing, what would that be?
Slow down. I was in such a hurry. I
I was
thought
almost
that
gonna say that slower. I was like, "If you could."
people watch my webinars on 2X and they can never get it. But I was in such a hurry to graduate, to achieve the results, to make my first $1 million, to do these other things that I was an asshole and I didn't treat people the right way because I felt like I need to be a millionaire by 25. And I did. But I caused so much damage along the way. And
Mm,
I would have actually been way more successful personally, financially, spiritually, if I just slowed down. And it's like planting vegetables. I love tomatoes. I know all about organic heirloom tomatoes. My previous garden had 14 varieties of heirloom tomatoes, like you would not believe. And the engineer in me would plant stuff and use the right water with the right pH at the right temperature and the right fertilizer. And I was doing everything. I bought 3 books on how to grow tomatoes, and I would get 150 pounds of tomatoes per tomato tree. That's how good I was at
Wow.
planting tomatoes because I followed
Yeah.
the recipe. And so I was so fastidious about it that I would literally go back to my plot in the garden every couple hours and I would check to see whether it grew anymore. I would inspect the roots. I would dig up the plant and see whether the roots are. 2 hours later, I'm digging it up. In another 2 hours, I come back and I'm inspecting it again. How do
Wow.
you think my tomato plants did when I was pulling up the roots every 2 hours? But I wanted it so bad. I wanted these tomatoes to be
Yeah.
perfect. I like
Yeah.
anytime there was like an insect or whatever, I'd kill it because I'm like, how dare you attack my tomato tree? But then I realized, wait, I'm not really in a big hurry. I need to let Mother Nature take over and do what it's supposed to do. So if I just inspected the plants only twice a day, they actually did a lot better than me maniacally inspecting my tomato plants 15 times per day. It's like evaluating your stocks, right? If you log
Yeah.
into your E-Trade or whatever, you're like, oh, the stock went up 3 cents, it went
Yeah.
down 5 cents, it went up $1. We're like, you'll never get there when you're constantly overworking, working too hard. I think that going slower, making fewer steps is actually faster.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a patience is so challenging as an entrepreneur or a gardener, right? You're growing something either way. It's definitely hard. So I'll ask this question too. What is an assumption that people have about you that's wrong?
They love to say that Dennis is a genius and Dennis is like super intelligent and Dennis is some sort of superhuman. Like, I appreciate that. I understand it comes from a good place. But what they have wrong about this is I've worked really hard. So you've heard about the 10,000 hour rule. I have 80,000 hours in digital marketing. And so what happens is that when someone has got a lot of experience in an area and you don't have much experience at all in that area, that can come off as them being really intelligent when really they're just smart. They know a lot of facts. They just have a lot of information from having done it for such a long time. It doesn't mean they're more intelligent. I think this is true of nearly anyone that I know that is successful in their field. I was telling you, Tommy Mello, this guy started off doing garage doors back in 2015. And he runs A1 garage doors. He knows everything about garage doors. He made videos about garage doors. He can fix garage doors. He knows like all the parts, all the manufacturers for garage doors, like garage door, garage door. So you might think that he's a genius, and maybe he is from an IQ standpoint. But what I see is the sheer determination of working on this garage door business and just doing garage doors night and day for 16 years.
Yeah. Do you think that's what it takes to be successful?
Some people get lucky and they sell their company in 18 months. You see all these Silicon Valley sorts of things, but people that I know that have started companies that they've sold for hundreds of millions, and I'm not saying that's the path we need to take, right? There's lots of businesses that don't have to grow into this wild thing. But the people I know that have been successful, they've taken at least 10 years. Like Dustin Moskovitz, who is the CTO of Facebook, people would say, hey, what's it like being at an overnight success? And he said, if you mean working day and night every weekend for the last 10 years before Facebook IPO'd, then yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think like you said, there is still and I think it depends on your definition of success, right? You can have a successful company. It doesn't have to be this huge thing, right? It doesn't have to be this crazy big thing, but if you want it to be, you need to be really intentional about that.
Yeah. I find having bigger dreams attracts better quality people. And if your
Yeah.
company is growing and it's making money, and there's nothing unethical or evil about making money, but if your company's making more money and growing, that creates more opportunities for other people to be able to grow. And people who are high achievers want to be a part of a company that has a big vision and is growing. To
Mhm.
some degree, if you want to have the best quality people, you have to be growing and have some big, hairy, audacious.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do. So that's awesome. I already told you I love quotes, and I'd love to hear your favorite quote as we wrap this up.
Andrew, my favorite quote, which I heard from my pastor, and I've said it lots of times, is if you don't quit, you win. Which is weird because you would think like, I'm not smart enough to win. I'm not some crazy genius. I don't have the connections. I don't have the charisma. So I don't like hitting a home run or scratching the lottery ticket and getting the right numbers. Like that just seems like a really hard thing to do. But one thing I do know is that I'm a stubborn cuss. I will keep at it. And I know that I don't quit. Every time I make a mistake, I get back up. Look, I've run ultra marathons, right? I'm a professional sufferer, right? I've run like 25 marathons. I ran D1 cross country and track, so I know how to suffer. I think you have a son who's a swimmer, so he knows something about 3 hours in the pool kind of stuff, right? So I don't see myself as some kind of amazing superstar who just hits home runs all the time. I see myself as someone who I fail all the time, but I just keep learning. So as long as I keep going, as long as you don't quit, you win. And I know a lot of people who are, they just keep going and they just keep going. My buddy Woody Marks, he owns 10 Ashley furniture stores in Alabama. He does $100 million a year, and he's the first one to admit that he's not the most intelligent person, but he's been at it for a long time. His family was in the furniture business a long time, and he just doesn't give up. He's had lots of employees steal from him. He's been sued, but he just keeps at it. And the other entrepreneurs that I know that are just 50 times more successful than me, I hear about all kinds of, like when we get together, we all complain privately. And I see how the number one thing is the resilience. They just pick themselves up and they just keep going.
Right. Yeah. It's huge. It's been a huge theme that people have talked about. And there's another quote that I love too, that failure is an event, not an identity. And it's just, you have to learn from it. And definitely, I just admire you so much for what you're doing out there in the world, Dennis. And I know that you're going to get million jobs sooner rather than later. And I'm just excited to be connected to you. You're awesome. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Andrea. How long have we known each other?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably, I met you very early on in my journey. I think that you've met Grandma Mary as well, obviously. So it's been a while. It's at least like 10 years, I would think, at least,
Yeah.
probably somewhere in there. So that's awesome. And
How's that for
uh,
resilience, right? You
yeah,
keep
yeah.
learning.
And where can people find out about you? Where's the best way to get connected to you and your mission, everything like that?
You can Google me. So Google Dennis Yu, and I'm on every single social network,
Yeah.
even Tumblr, even Rumble. And I'd love to
And we'll
connect with
have
you.
you.
I'd love what you're thinking. Love to see what you're up to.
Yeah.
Andrea's fantastic. Learn like anything from her, buy it.
And we'll have all the links to your connections in the show notes as well. But thank you so much, Dennis, for taking the time. And I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea. You're the best.
Hope that was helpful, and make sure you grab the free guide, Top Tools for Late Starters, on the website at latestartersclub.com. And let's turn dreaming into doing.